What's up, Tigers? Welcome back to This Week in 23 Sports. I'm Kayla Smith along with Jack McGrath.
That's right, folks. Welcome back and happy game week.
That's right. We are less than 48 hours away from the kickoff of the 2020 Mizzou football season.
What to expect and more on This Week in 23 Sports.
Welcome to This Week in 23 Sports, your premier University of Missouri sports update show. Now your hosts, Jack McGrath and Kayla Smith.
The wait is over. College football is back in Columbia, Missouri, and this week kicks off Mizzou's home opener against powerhouse Alabama, and this kicks off a 10-game campaign against all SEC opponents. Jack, how do you think this one's going to shake out with having 6 nationally ranked opponents in our schedule?
Yeah, it's a tough start for sure, and any coach being thrown into these circumstances in their first games, it's going to be tough for them. I mean, how many coaches have their first game against the number 2 team in the nation? That being said, these games are not going to define Drinkwitz's tenure. He's had a great success in recruiting. He has the 28th best ranked recruiting class in 2021, according to 247 Sports. He also has picked up important pieces on defense, such as 4-star recruit Travion Ford and defensive end Kyran Montgomery. Drinkwitz has been successful in the recruiting process thus far.
And let's hear what QB Mac Jones had to say about it from Alabama.
They're a really good defense. Ryan Walters, their defensive coordinator, does a great job schematically, on the back end. With their cornerbacks, number 14 and number 8, they look pretty good. Obviously, they might have some guys out, but those guys in the back end look good.
This is sure to test the new culture in the revitalized squad for Mizzou. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, most definitely. And looking at the Tigers this weekend, keys to the game include keeping Alabama's offense in check. Mizzou's defense lost some important pieces and key returners as well, such as AP second-team All-American Nick Bolton. Drinkwitz was also able to retain defensive coordinator Ryan Walters and defensive line coach Brick Haley for the year, which is a good sign for a defensive unit that finished in the top 15 of college football last year. The Missouri offense might not be able to keep up with Alabama into the shootout, but the defense will be the key, just as Mac Jones said right there.
Yeah, and let's hear what we have for Mizzou this season compared to last season.
It's Missouri football time once again, and here with the Mizzou football preview. That was last year's quarterback Kelly Bryant, no longer with the team. Let's talk about players who are with the team. Former Angelo State wide receiver Kiki Chisom there with the catch. He will look to make an immediate impact in Mizzou's receiving core this season. Next up, safety Joshua Bledsoe, a key part of this Mizzou secondary this season. There he is, making a tackle. And moving on from there, we go to all SEC linebacker Nick Bolton, one of the top defenders in football right now, and a key part to this Mizzou defense. After that, going back to the secondary, Tyree Gillespie, another safety. He and Bledsoe will look to shut down opposing quarterbacks. Then here we move on to wide receiver Damon Hazelton Jr., a transfer from Virginia Tech, and most likely the top receiving threat for the Tigers. And now on to running back Tyler Beatty. You know him, you love him. He's the quick scat back who was a stud last season. He's going to look to continue on that excellent path in college football. And then moving on to the potential starting quarterback, Sean Robinson. He and Connor Bazelak, a starter has not been announced yet, but he is a threat to watch. 4-star recruit coming out of high school, an absolute stud. Back to the secondary with cornerback Jarvis Ware making a stop here, another key part to this Mizzou secondary. And to end things off, no better way than with running back Larry Roundtree, another key part in this Mizzou ground game.
After saying goodbye to true son Barry Odom at the conclusion of last season, AD Jim Stark was looking for more success and offensive production from the Tigers with the addition of Drinkwitz. Jack, what do you think his leeway is going to be like with this not being his recruits, with this being a really tough schedule? What do you think he's going to have from AD Jim Stark?
I think there's going to be plenty given Mizzou's tough schedule. The Tigers have 6 games against top 25 teams in their first 7 games, and 4 of those games come against teams in the top 6. That gives them one of the toughest schedules in college football. A win even in one of those games, or a few of those games, could give the program a huge boost for the rest of the year.
So this should be an exciting weekend for the Tigers. Everybody on campus is getting excited. You can feel the buzz. But that's not the only game that's supposed to kick off this weekend. We've got Mizzou women's soccer kicking off on Sunday after the game. They were supposed to kick off last weekend. That didn't happen because of COVID-related things on the Florida team. So they will now be traveling to South Carolina to take on the Gamecocks on Sunday.
That's right, and the coaches weren't too upset by the delay. Head coach Brian Blitz said he's glad to get one more week in to train in their already shortened off season. He said the women are excited to get this season underway this weekend.
And I don't doubt that. The Mizzou Tigers did fall to the Gamecocks last season. They were number 7 last season, the Gamecocks were. So they're hoping to bounce back from that loss. You can catch them on Sunday at 3 p.m. on ESPNU. Next up, we have the results of the Mizzou men's and women's cross country. They marked their first competition of the season for any Mizzou sport this past Saturday at the Commodore Classic in Nashville. They went up against Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Auburn, and Alabama, all SEC opponents like everybody else. They put up a solid performance, with senior Sarah Chapman taking second place overall for the women to help her team finish third overall.
Yes, and for the men, freshman William Sinclair finished third overall behind 2 Kentucky runners, helping the men to a second-place finish as a team and earning Sinclair the SEC Freshman of the Week honor.
That's such a huge honor as a freshman. Your first competition, your first week, so awesome. Way to debut his season. Both Kentucky men's and women's teams won their respective divisions in the meet, and the Mizzou runners will be back on their home course for the Gans Creek Classic Saturday, October 3rd. In other news, we've seen some Tigers playing in the NFL this weekend, playing or participating potentially. Big names from last season like Alberto and Cale Garrett have yet to make their debuts, but we also have breaking news about Drew Lock this week, and breaking news about Cale Garrett is that he may be on the practice team for the Vikings.
Yeah, Garrett was looking like an All-American as a senior last year, but his season was cut short by a torn pectoral muscle, and so he went undrafted in this year's draft, but signed with the Tennessee Titans soon after that, and he was cut from the team this offseason. With the shortened offseason, didn't have a huge chance to prove himself, but he will now be trying to earn himself a spot on that Minnesota Vikings roster.
Yeah, and what a force he was for the Missouri defense last year until he got injured, unfortunately. Hopefully this can be a stepping stone for him onto the pro field on Sundays. Alberto has also yet to make his debut for the NFL season. He was drafted 118th in the 2020 draft by the Denver Broncos alongside his buddy Drew Lock.
Yeah, so looking at Alberto, with Noah Fant, he's still the number 1 tight end in Denver. And Alberto currently is listed as the 4th tight end on the Denver Broncos website. He may have a tougher time than Drew Lock did in grabbing some playing time right away, but he definitely has the intangibles. So hopefully he will get there eventually.
Yeah, and speaking of his buddy Drew Lock, after a solid debut season last year, he entered this season as the Broncos QB1. He played a solid 2-point loss against the Titans week 1. However, this past Sunday against the Steelers, he suffered a shoulder injury that is said to have him out for 2 to 6 weeks.
Probably not the start to the season that these former Tigers were looking for. But you know what? There's some hope going out there looking for their young guys still.
Yep. All right. That is all we have for you this week on This Week in 23 Sports. We are so glad you joined us. Stay safe this weekend and get excited. Get on your black and gold because football is back.